Tell somebody, say Christmas is crazy. Actually, just say cray cray. Say Christmas is cray cray. I got to change things up. I'm predictable. Stand to your feet. Tell everybody, say Christmas is crazy. Online, you better drop a comment if you're with me live or later. Just admit it. It's crazy, just like you are. And it's the good news. It's the good news that it's crazy. It is. Week 2 of this series. I just want to start out with this. This is what the Bible says. This is good news, y'all. This is good news. I don't know what news you're experiencing in your life, but this supersedes all of it. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. And that's what we believe, and that's why we can face whatever we need to face. Say it one more time. Say, Christmas is cray cray. We tend to forget we got a history. We do. We tend to forget we got a history. We get spiritual amnesia and amnesia in general about the levels we used to live on. We do. You just think you were always the angel that you are now. You really ain't an angel now, but at least you learned how to act like one a little better. And you think you were always that way. Like you didn't party and make dumb decisions like your kids and spend money frivolously like your adult kids. And like you didn't do things that could have got you locked up or lost your life or got you beat down over and over. See, we forget. We forget it. It's convenient to forget it. I just can't believe what a player my kid's boyfriend is. I just can't believe it. He thinks we're the wrong part of his. He is a teenager. You are 35 years old. But I didn't do that. Don't even go there. You didn't do that. We get amnesia. We get amnesia. You're like these young people. They just don't want to work. They don't want to work. I'm going to tell you something. You did not come out of the womb awesome and ready to take over the world, pinky in the brain. I'm going to tell you, we forget that we have a history. Some of us have amnesia. Some of us are ashamed of it. You're traumatized by it. You hate yourself because of it. You are stuck in your history because of that. And I want you to know, as a matter of fact, can we just raise our hands right now? Just say, I'm going to make you make a confession online. You better drop a comment or say it in your room. When you should be in this room, but you're in yours if you're in Carrollton. But wherever you are, say it because God wants to speak to you. Tell everybody right now, say, I got a history. Now, make it raw. Say, I got a past. Say, I got some stuff I'm ashamed of. I got some stuff I don't want to talk about. And here's the gospel. Christmas has a history. And I want to talk about it in week 2 because it will help you heal from your history and help you not, it doesn't have to keep being your story. As you're seated, tell somebody Christmas is cray cray. We don't understand that Israel in the Old and New Testament, that people don't change. They went through the same stuff we went through. I'm going to start here. They were in cycles just like you are stuck in cycles. They were stuck in cycles. You were stuck in cycles. Can you just say that with me? Say cycles. Say cycles. Say it like you mean it. Say cycles. And what we're going to see is they were stuck in the same cycles because we like to look back then and act like it's different, and it's not different. They were stuck in cycles. The definition of cycles are a series of events that regularly repeat themselves in the same order. Say cycles. Cycles. I told you last week, Christmas started with a promise. 4,000 years before Christmas, the story of Christmas actually started with a promise to a man named Abram, who would eventually be Abraham, in a nation called Israel. And what happened after this promise was made is they began to live and get stuck in cycles of insanity and dysfunctional living. That's what happened. And you see through the Old Testament this repeat of hysteria and heartbreak and disappointment and anger and stupidity. And I told you last week, we look at Israel a lot of times, and Christians and the church a lot of times is always the good guys, and they weren't always the good guys, just like you and I aren't always the good guys. Y'all didn't like to amen that. That's all right. That's all right. That's all right. So they got stuck in these cycles, and here's what the cycle was. You can see it. It was some version of this. They would get in these holes and these heartbreaking situations. Most of them they put themselves in. And they would beg God to get them out of after they finally admitted they were in them and actually had to face consequences and really look in the mirror. And they would be in, whether it was in slavery to other nations or whether they had internal dysfunction that made them live in constant chaos. Sound familiar? I'm just saying, this has got to hit you because you have a history too. We all do. And so they would get in these situations and God would get them out of them. Get them out of it. He would rescue them, and they would praise God. Thank God. Just like we do, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. And the best is yet to come, but not because you say it, but it is something you do and you obey him and you practice it. And so what happened is he would get them out of these holes. They would praise God, thank God, come to church a little bit more regularly when you really need him real bad. And actually be honest with your spouse and your boss and everybody around you and not hold people in the dark when you're hurting and not okay. We do that when we're desperate. And what happened is they would get themselves just like we do. The cycle would continue, and they would get complacent, and they would slowly, because we never just make a dumb decision. The dumb decisions, the big ones in our life, we don't make over time. We make small decisions day by day, and it happens over years. And so what happens is they would end up back in the same. The Bible says that they would do what was right in their own eyes. And so this complacency would cause them to end up back in the same cycles, the same seasons. Typically, they would dig a hole even deeper because, let's face it, it magnifies generations to generation. And if you don't begin to break your cycles, your kids and your grandkids, it will be worse for them than it is for you. Because that's just people. That ain't punishment from God. That's us. They were in this cycle. Roller coaster ride, the Old Testament. I'm trying to do a little dance up here, but that's what it was. It sound familiar? Sound familiar? Your emotional situation, financial, mental, your life, your marriage, your relationships with your friends and family and kids and everything else. It was this roller coaster ride. Say cycles. They were in cycles. And what I want you to see is this story of history, the story of Christmas does not start with what we're going to be talking about on Christmas Eve at Catalyst. By the way, if you haven't invited your family to worship, you better go ahead and tell them, because it's going to be awesome up in this mug Christmas Eve night at 3 p.m. But I want to tell you the backstory, because a lot of us, we like to get to the highlight reel. We like to get to the mountaintop. But you got to learn from your history first. And so they would always end up back in these holes because of the cycles that they were stuck in, because they were stuck in cycles and you are stuck in cycles. And we see Israel as this archaic story that is out of touch with our lives, but it is not at all. They had the same issues and got stuck in the same cycles that every one of us does. And I'm going to show you today. We like to talk about now, it's the end times, man. It's just different. The Bible said this was going to happen. It's always been happening. You know why? Because we are in the room and on the planet. It is. I can't stand it. I'm like, what's happening different? It's always happened. Ain't nothing changed. Culture's changed a little bit because we've gotten a little better at the crap that we do and covering it up. The world's bigger. But the stuff that we're scared of, the stuff that you're angry about, the stuff in the world, the stuff in your life, ain't nothing changed. It's still the same. Say cycles. They lived in cycles. We live in cycles. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take you to I want to go to Judges chapter 2. But I'm going to tell you this, your patterns in your life, the patterns that you allow, that you tolerate, that you won't deal with, that is the reason that God hasn't done much in your life and that you haven't experienced much of the presence and promise of God. It is your, say, cycles. It's your cycles. I'm going to prove it to you today because I'm still got some people like, that ain't fair, that ain't fair. No, life ain't fair, but you get to stay stuck in your cycles or not, say, cycles. Because you will get stuck in your history if you don't break out of your cycles. Not just true for Israel, it is true for every one of us. And there is not just a beautiful part of Christmas, there is a very tragic part that I want to show you today, because God wants you to break out of some cycles. There's some people in here, you don't think you've done all that, made that many mistakes. You've been in church your whole life, but I'm telling you, there's some cycles that are squelching what God really wants to do in your heart and life. And you are very, very superficial in your relationship with God. And whatever your cycle is, it is all the same, because we all have them and we tolerate them and we don't deal with them and do anything about them. Say cycles. I want to take you to Judges chapter 2. This is just one example of the history of Christmas. And unfortunately, it's not just your history. For many of us, it is our current situation. But the hope of Christmas is it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. And I want to take you to this season that's a good example of the cycles that Israel lived in. It is the season of Judges. And I'll explain it as we go through. Say cycles. After that generation died, it goes from generation to generation. There's a lot of things that aren't God's fault and not his punishment. It is our choices. After that generation died, another generation grew up who did not acknowledge the Lord or remember the mighty things he had done for Israel. We forget where we came from. We forget who got us there. Whether you're struggling or whether you're successful, winning and losing, many times we tend to forget who got us there and who can get us out of where we are. And they forgot where they came from. And this was a cycle in the period of the Judges where God would raise up leaders called judges, men and women, who would take them out of the holes, because God always uses people. And he would use people to take them out, and they would sink right back in their holes. And it says the Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight and served the images of Baal. They forgot where they came from. They went on to other gods. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. Watch this. They went after other gods, worshiping the gods of their people, of the people around them. Say culture. 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 See, what happens is you let culture define what success is in your life. It is no different all these years later. They worship the gods, the values of the people around them, the culture around them. So the reason we have men that are killing themselves and they're constantly packing out the prisons is because culture puts this pressure on men, and the church does too, that if they don't provide a certain amount of living and if they don't do this for their kids and their family, they can love Jesus, but they're not worthy. And so you have men that do what humans do when they break. You either beat yourself up or everybody else, or you run. So we got men who are either angry or they're abandoning their family, and it is culture that is defining what you think manhood is in your life. Women, we got women. If you go, we look at politicians and female leaders that because they didn't have kids and were career people, then they're bad. Well, maybe that's not what God wired them to want as a child, and that doesn't make them less just because God's called you to be a mama. See, we let culture define success for us. And what happens is, whether it's sports, money, respect, you are shooting and you are inspired by the standard of culture for a fulfilling life. And I'm going to tell you, it will sabotage your life, your peace. It is a cycle. And so Israel would end up back here, sabotaging their own stories in history. God made the promise generations before that Christmas is a Savior, a Messiah, a blessing. And he was continuing that process and promise. And they were completely living and stuck and enslaved in cycles. And the Bible says, and they angered the Lord. They abandoned the Lord to serve Baal and images of Ashtoreth. I want you to see this. We have not, idol worship isn't outdated. We've just gotten really better at making it look pretty. We look at idol, we're like, we see Moses, raising up a calf for them to worship. See, here's the thing I learn about people, and because I am one, is we get better at making things look pretty. And so what happens these thousands of years later is idol worship is probably more predominant now than ever. You don't think it's that. And honestly, we do idols in church. Success, respect. It don't look stupid to you anymore because we have gotten so good at covering things up. We have sophisticated idols now. We have sophisticated idols now. That give you dopamine hits just like the opioid epidemic. Some people don't take pills. They just stay stuck to this. You can't even have a conversation with your family and watch a TV show without somebody checking the messages. We just gotten better at it. What we done, you gotten better at it. It is power, respect, money. Your body is not your temple. It's your God, and you know it. That's why you go to the gym way too much. That's why you don't eat things that you want to eat, because you don't even have, you ain't ate something that you love in 10 years. You go to the gym 17 times a week. That is not your body being a temple. That is an idol, is what your body is. And what happens when you make an idol is your soul and spirit are hollow and bankrupt, and your body just looks amazing, but it is a show. It is a shell, as my mama used to call it. You want to look up your real idols? I'm going to hit everybody in the heart, including myself, because I do it. I look at it because I want to see the truth. Look at your credit card statements and what you're overspending on. There's your idol. Now, plastic is what we got now. We don't have to go build a statue. You can buy that statue with plastic, and it's online. It ain't even 90 feet in the air anymore. It's just got you thousands of dollars in debt that you're going to spend the rest of your life paying off, and ain't going to be able to buy your grandkids or kids nothing, and you're going to run up more credit cards because, let's face it, they make money off you paying to your debt. It's an idol. Say cycles. Cycles. Sports. Got some incredible athletes, but you will literally run yourself in the ground. Your peace. Because you don't let God do some things in their life. Idols can be a million different things. I got my own. I got my little Deborah shirt next week to show you mine. That's why I don't keep it in the house, because I ain't trying to eat my idols all day because they'll kill me. It can be anything. And it says, this made the Lord burn with anger against Israel. God's anger isn't our anger. He isn't a diva. He doesn't act a fool out of not being controlled. He has righteous anger. He sees our heart and that we can do better. I'm going to show you that in a minute. So he handed them over to raiders who stole their possessions. Oh, I want you to see this. Who stole their possessions. He turned them over to their enemies. By the way, if you're new here, your bulletin has all the scripture outline on it. Online, we have that there too. And they were no longer able to resist them. You know how the Bible promises that you will fight armies like you will beat them like they're one man, not an army? Well, there's also times where God sets them up to be defeated like they're the one man and not the army. Every time Israel went out to battle, the Lord fought against them. Woo! God will fight against you when you're constantly fighting against yourself and living in cycles. He ain't going to bless you when you can't handle it and ain't ready for it. Causing them to be defeated just as he had warned. And the people were in great distress, because let me tell you, God will take the possessions that are possessing you. Oh, I probably didn't get many amens right now, but I'm going to tell you, God will take he will take from you what is robbing you from him. That ain't in my notes. I just made that up. He will take from you what is robbing you from him. Angie, there's your social media outline, or comments. I don't have to do it this week. You won't get the promotion. You'll lose the job. Some of you, you'll get the cancer. You'll go to jail. Some of you lose everything. Because God knows that the cycles that you're stuck in are suffocating the life, the promise, the peace, and the potential right out of you. And he loves you too much to let you stay stuck there. So he will fight against you so that you will break out of the things that are enslaving your life, when he is a God of forward promise, peace, and freedom, just like he said. And he did no different. It was no different with Israel. You got to break it. Watch this. Watch this. It says, then the Lord raised up judges to rescue the Israelites from their attackers. Yet Israel did not listen to the judges, but prostituted themselves by worshiping other gods. You don't like being called out on your cycles, and so what you do is you push everybody away, you blame them, you take shots at them, you were not honest or accountable. So what happens is, we do it all the time, you prostitute yourself because of pride. So you go deeper in your hole just to prove your parents wrong when they were right. You had a train wreck of a relationship and you could have ran from it a year ago, but you wanted to prove your parents wrong because you don't like their opinion. Youth aren't even in here right now. Why I even do that? No, you do it to your grown parents, grown people. Old people, grown people, they got more experience than you. Even if they ain't all that wise, they've been here longer. We do it. We push away. We push away. We do the same thing, and it says they did it too. Y'all notice I'm teaching a little bit more the last few weeks. How quickly they turned away from the path of their ancestors. How quickly we turn away from what God has done for us. What have you done for me? Well, lately, God. What about my next goal, my next pay raise? How quickly we turn away when he doesn't do what we want when we want. Who had walked? How could we turn away from the path of their ancestors who walked in obedience to the Lord's commands? Whenever the Lord raised up a judge, this was before the king narratives. This is judges, leaders that took them out of the places that they were in. Whenever he raised up a judge over Israel, he was with that judge, and God used them to rescue the people from their enemies throughout the judge's lifetime. For the Lord took pity on his people. He is not mad at you. He's sad. He wants more for you. He always has. He still does. It's always true. He is not angry. He is not punishing you. He wants to push you to more, and you keep pushing back because of cycles. Who were burdened by their oppression. He took pity on them because they were burdened by oppression and suffering. You've been living in poverty your whole life. You got money now, but you're still living in poverty because you ain't got no peace. You may not be broke like your parents, but you are emotionally. Ain't nothing changed. But when the judge died, when the leader they looked to died, when your mama that taught you to love Jesus died, when the leader in your church died, when whoever you look to died, the people your husband that you put him on the throne and not Jesus, so you sat beside him in church, he drops dead too soon, and what happens is that the people return to their corrupt ways because we really aren't connected. Behaving worse than those that lived before, because I'm going to tell you, cycles get worse, not better, until they're broken. And it don't take this supernatural power for God. God will do his part. You want to break cycles of addiction and bitterness in your family and poverty, it starts with you. It just takes one person. God will do his part, but one person needs to do theirs. And they went after other gods, serving and worshiping them, and they refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. This was an entire season that we call the book of Judges, and it is no different throughout their history. They just learned to make it look different, and they lived up and down, in and out, and God was always there, always fighting for them. He made a promise to them, and he intended to keep it, because the Bible says he is not a man that he should lie. But the thing is, they got stuck in cycles. Catalyst Church, we make excuses because we've learned to make it. We say, "Oh, I'm just in a tough season. I've just had setbacks my whole life. I didn't have a daddy. I didn't have a mama. I've constantly had to fight every battle. I'm just in a season." No, you're not. There are some things in your life that you were in a cycle. You were in a pattern of your own making, doing your own thing, doing what is right in your own eyes. And it is the reason you keep getting heartbroken. You were on 3 marriages. You were bankrupt for the 3rd time. You don't like anybody. You got a big personality, but you got bigger insecurities. It is because we are stuck in cycles. It is not a season. It is a cycle. This is not just the history of Christmas. This is your history. It is my history. And we get to choose if it's going to continue to be our story. We make it about us. Everything about us. I'm as guilty as you are. Can we just raise our hands before I get into this thing real deep? Say, I got a history and I make it about me. Say, I'm selfish sometimes. Say, sometimes, all the times. We do what was right in our own eyes. We are selfish. We don't even realize it. You even make your hurt about you. Yeah, they hurt you. They hurt you bad. You're still recovering years later. I don't even have to name names and give you examples. You know you're hurt, and when I just said it, it hit you more than anything I said, and you make it about you. And I'm going to tell you, you better get over it, and you better get past your past, because if you do not, you are going to stay stuck in it, you are going to stew over it, and you are going to be a slave to it. And the day you die, you may see Jesus, but you aren't going to live life, and he promised life right here, right now. And if you keep on trying to prove your daddy that wasn't there that you're worth having, if you try to prove that you're not dumb and that you can do it, if you try to prove whatever you're trying to prove because of the people that hurt you, left you, don't like you, still don't invite you to their parties, I'm going to tell you, you have made it about you, and I don't care what they did. You are doing what is right in your own eyes. Say cycles. Your spouse takes a back seat to your dreams and your desires. Your work schedule, your wants and work schedule are come before your family. You can make all the excuses you want. You know it's true. It is about you. Where I want to eat, what I want to do. And if we don't do it that way, there's hell to pay for everybody that I love and has to be around me. We make it about us. You get in seasons of insecurity and you've been stuck in cycles for so long, and people think you're selfish because you're a bad person. No, you're selfish because you've been broken in cycles for years. Christmas is raw. It's crazy. It's crazy if you really look at it. They didn't even say thank you. I did this for them. You know, we've had people leave the church over the years because I didn't acknowledge them enough on the stage. And if that's why, if you want an acknowledgement, you made it about you. You know why my favorite thing about this cup, Christy, is you put Ben. I don't like Pastor Ben. You don't see it on anything. If you want your kids to call me that, I will tolerate it. I am in this thing with you. I don't want to. There's some Sundays I'm up here thinking, am I doing any preaching? They ain't said nothing to me. I can't do it for that. If I do it for that in the dead Sundays, I give you less because you give me less. I've made it about me. And I do that sometimes, but I can't stay there. That's a cycle. We make church about us. We do. You look at church. This is American church culture right here. You look at church as you're the customer. By the way, the biggest idol in American and world culture, everybody's worried about other religions. Consumerism is our religion, even in the American church. That's why you'll cuss somebody out over not putting mayo on your chicken sandwich. I want mayo on my chicken sandwich, but it ain't worth that much. And I'm going to tell you, it's so ingrained in you, you don't even know it. You're entitled because consumerism is an idol in our country and in our world and in our churches. That's why people get mad. Preachers, all they do is talk about money. No, you're a consumer. Not a Christian. Not first a Christian. You love Jesus. You're just like consuming things more. That's why you'll spend all your extra on Christmas trying to keep up appearances. But anyway, back to church. You see church you see church. You are a consumer. You come here to receive, not that you have something worth giving to other people. And that's why we get our feelings hurt, because in a country and a culture where we cuss somebody out because they didn't refill our drinks enough. And I'm telling you, I put my waitresses and waiters to work, but I can't get mad. See, you see it, we are a customer-driven culture, and so you don't see yourself as a contributor, which is why if it's too hot or too cold in this mug, or if I say something that hurts your feelings and you don't like it and don't want to grow, what you do is you take off to another church. That's why you've been to 17 churches and you ain't even been married 7 years. Or worse than that, now we don't even do that, because we live in a culture you can say what you want when you want, call it free speech, but don't call it Christian. And what will happen is, what we do is we end up going anti-church, and we say, the church ain't got nothing for me. You hear what you said? Me. Ain't got nothing for my family. That's why watching church online, just because you're scared to be in a crowd, is safe. Now, if you're far away or you sick today with COVID, I love you. I will see you when you don't have COVID. But I'm going to tell you, We made it about us. Cycles. Say cycles. This is the cycles we get stuck in. Cycles. You care too much about what other people think is why you constantly say you don't care what other people think. I believe thou protest too much. You care. That's why you constantly have to say you don't. And you eat terribly. You take terrible care of yourself. You can't say no. You always say yes. And you never ask for help because you were self-reliant. Hear that word? Self. And you end up mad at the world because they don't take the initiative that you take, but nobody asked you to take it, neither did God. We make it about us. We just gotten better at making it look pretty and wrapping a little verse around it that we took out of context and cherry picked. Christmas ain't some warm, fuzzy holiday. There are principles and promises that will change your life if you'll look at it for more than just chestnuts roasting on an open fire. You make excuses, not changes. And this cycle repeated in the Old Testament. It repeated over and over. And it's the same in your life. It is the same cycle. We go through the same cycles. And even if the cycles look different, the motives don't. It's about us. Survival mode when you've been hurt. When you stay on the sidelines too long and you've went from healing to you've enabled yourself to do nothing. It is all the same stuff. And what happens is, same cycle, different day, different decade. And for Israel and for many of your families, it's the different generation now. But it is the same cycle. Say cycles. Can I just go deeper for a minute? I know I'm hitting you hard today, but I want Christmas. I want you to sit at the table this Christmas with your family, whether you like them or not. And I want you, I said it, you feel it. Why not I say it? I want you to sit at your table with whoever you don't like or whoever doesn't like you, and I want you to hear the true principles and the hope of Christmas because it'll change your life. It'll change your peace and your perspective, and you won't let people take from you, and you also won't try to get ticked off when they do. You have peace and love and humility. Sometimes that looks like boldness, but you got it. I want to just go deeper. See, they were angry just like you were angry. The very last book of the Old Testament is Malachi. This is about 400 years before Christmas, and Jesus came along as a man. I told you last week he was always there, and I showed you that, but he came as a man, and this is what God says: I have loved you, says the Lord. Whatever you're dealing with, even the person that's jingle belling right now, listen to me, no matter how bad you're hurting, I just made their anxiety. They can't stay still now. I'd be the same way. Somebody call me, I'd be ticking everywhere. Be jingle, I'd have to go out the room. Good thing everybody ain't like me. I have loved you, says the Lord. Man, anybody right now, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you didn't get this year, whatever's breaking your heart. Israel had been at these cycles for years, thousands of years at this point. And God says to the prophet Malachi, he says, I have loved you, says the Lord. But you say, Israel, you say, Catalyst. And if you're afraid to say it, you live it every single day. How have you loved us? How have you loved us? They were tired. They were tired from spinning their wheels and being stuck in cycles for so many generations and years. And they were numb. You ever been there? I've been there. I've been on this stage before and just wanted to feel something. I had to give everybody else something and preach. I've sat in counseling offices in the week having to give of myself. And I felt nothing. I had nothing to give. And I just want to feel something. You ever felt that numb and skeptical? Some of you are sitting there right now and you don't even have the strength to amen me. But you were right there with me. You were heartbroken, and they were broken and broken and broken. Hey, they just say, hey, and God says, I have loved you. I love you, Israel. How have you loved me? Some of you right now, you don't even believe anymore. You have no faith left. You say you believe. You want to believe. You even come to church every Sunday, but you don't believe. Not anymore. You lost your faith in, and not just people and God. By the way, if you lose your faith in people, you've lost your faith in God. I hate when people say, I just lost my faith in humanity. Well, there goes your faith too. Because Jesus said, love God, love your neighbor. if that's who you say, if you say you love Jesus, you got no choice but to feel that. You don't have to be afraid of it. You can be angry about it. But if you don't have any faith in people, you don't have faith in God's creation, which what does that mean? You don't have faith in him. I'm done with that now. I got to stay on track. I've been preaching too long. Some of you just don't even mind saying it. You'll admit it. And I love people. People like get scared about. I love teenagers that I have to meet with them because their parents are scared because they don't even believe anymore. I'm like, hey, let's eat some pizza, because I love it that you're doubting your faith right now, because you'll have true depth where most people follow Jesus their whole life and never dig beneath the surface. So sometimes depth in your life starts with saying, do I even believe this anymore? And sometimes you get heartbroken to the place you have to question everything, and that's not a bad place to be. Don't be scared of it. They were broken. Some of you right now, you got no faith. You'll say it. You came here because your grandmama loves you and asked you to, but you ain't got no space for God in your life. How can you love me? That's what you say. How? Just like Israel, they're just like us. We're people. How have you loved me? I prayed for a miracle, but I planned a funeral. My kids didn't get raised in a broken home, but they're still broken by addiction. All these kids that got addictions usually had no daddy and mama. No, they had a solid one. I did everything I could. They were at church every week. I tried my best, and they're still. Some of you, your children aren't here today because they OD'd. And you are like, what happened? How have you loved me, Jesus? I was sexually abused, and they're still walking and got no accountability. They're out there acting like nothing happened and there's been nothing. My spouse left me and cheated on me, and there's not just no accountability. I'm having to raise my kids by myself. How have you loved me? I don't feel it. I don't see it. And God told Israel and every one of you, wherever you are in your faith, I have loved you, says the Lord. And we are angry. We are empty. It doesn't make sense. And I want you to know this. Some things happen in life that will never make sense. The reason I have faith and can preach and stay up here in the things that don't make sense in my life and the people that I've had to lead is because I learned that faith it's not going to here, and I don't have to make bad news and bad things make sense to believe he's good. Some things in your life are going to happen that are unfair. There's some things that were unfair that happened to you. You didn't have a dad. You never had an example. You spent till you were 50 or 60 years old before you figured out how to be human, because there was no examples in your life. And it's bad. There's things that they're not fair, that you had to bury them too soon. It is not fair that you've had to go bankrupt. It's not fair that people have put you in a place and they did you wrong and everybody thinks you're the wrong about it. It is not fair. There are things in life that are going to happen that are not fair. They don't make sense. The heartbreak you've had to experience, the people you had to tell goodbye too soon. There are things that happen that are not fair and do not make sense. But the things that keep happening in your life, those are the things you can control, and they keep happening because of the choices you keep making and the changes you won't make. Say cycles. You're angry. You've acted pitiful, prideful, pushed everybody away. You got a bad temper. You blow opportunities. You sabotage relationships. You don't know how to manage your money. You're up and down, in and out. And here's the thing. Things are going to happen to all of us that are not fair, that break our hearts, that set us way back. But the things that we can control, that we keep doing and allowing and repeating and won't change, that's on us. So I can't speak to the things that are the tragedies in your life that don't make sense. But what I can say is you choose to spend the rest of your life drinking your problems away, and don't blame God for the alcohol poisoning and cirrhosis of the liver and the fact that you can't even think straight because of years of addiction that you have to spend a year now getting out of because you believe that God has a plan. Don't blame him for that, because it's the things we keep, the cycles we keep living in. And you're angry. And Israel was so angry and so empty after thousands of years of trying to follow God and living in cycles just like we do our entire lives. And Jesus shows up on the scene right in front of them. Right in front of them. This hits me. Happens to us all the time. Everything God promised Abraham in every generation is right in front of them in that manger. I love Mahatma Gandhi, who wasn't even a Christian. He says that there is no greater majesty than the manger. The Messiah was there in the middle of his people who, for 400 years, when God shut the door, they were angry, right? How have you loved us? I need to mention to you that 400 years we call the intertestamental period or intertestament period, and it is the 400 years of silence because he ended Malachi and said, I do not change. But every parent, there comes a time that you have to take your hands off your kids and you have to let hell fall on them. Because God spent years and generations saving them, but it wasn't working. And he is a father, and sometimes you have protected your kids and overcompensated, and if you don't pull your hands off, and I don't know if they're gonna receive it and learn, but I know that it ain't working what you're doing, constantly getting them out of trouble and paying too much and not letting them learn. And we see in the Bible that 400 years, he says, I've loved you. He was reminding Israel, I love you and I do not change. But he took his hands off. And so that 400 years of silence, this is the history of Christmas. You really want to hear it? It ain't pretty. 400 years in between the end of the Old Testament and the New Testament. I can't even tell you the tragedy because God was working, but he was no longer rescuing them. He was there, but they didn't feel him and they didn't see him because he said, I love you, but this ain't working. And God knows what works and what doesn't, but he works on our terms. He came down to us. But here's what happened in that 400 years. You read about a guy named Alexander the Great in schools, right? Alexander the Great Greek conqueror, Alexander the Conqueror, he conquered Jerusalem. They were conquered several times. The Maccabees did it in that 400 years. You see Hanukkah's birth out of those years of just absolute hell. But here's the most heartbreaking one. You want to hear it how it hits us in American culture? Alexander the Great was one of the most genius conquerors of all time. And he saw the mistakes of Egypt. They were never able to kill all of Israel. They tried, so he did something different. This is the time the Father took his hands off of them. He does that with us. He's there, but you don't feel him. Alexander the Great had this bright idea. He said, man, they love their lineage. They love their bloodline. And so instead of kill them all, because everybody tried that and all the nations couldn't do it and they're not here anymore and Israel is. And so what he did is he got his Greek men to rape the women for generations, and he mixed and he polluted or diluted, whatever the word is, their bloodline. When you see Samaritans in the Bible, that was mixed breed of Greek and Jew. And that's why Jews hated Samaritans. The New Testament isn't written in Hebrew, it's written in Aramaic. That's why Mel Gibson in his movie chose to write in Aramaic, because Jesus spoke that language. Do you know what Aramaic is? It's half Greek and half Hebrew. Wow. Greek was still Alexander the Great, and the way he manipulated and what he did to them was still when the Roman Empire, when Jesus comes on the scene in a manger, the Roman Empire is in power, but Alexander the Great, what he did to them, was still remaining. They were heartbroken. You want to talk about racism in this country and the scars of our country from slavery and us trying to constantly not address issues that are affecting us still to this day? Go read about the Samaritan history and why Jesus went to that well with that Samaritan woman and the statement he made and why religious people didn't like it. In this 400-year period, by the end of it, they're heartbroken. Nothing left. And Jesus comes on that first Christmas and he is right in front of them. The promise is finally there. And they are so broken because they continued their cycles and cycles and cycles, and he's right in front of them. The promise that was made to Abraham and their people was right in front of them, and they didn't even see it. Because when you have lived in your cycles of bitterness and pride and brokenness for so long, and you blame everybody and God and everything for the things that you keep choosing to stay in, two things happen: pride and bitterness. And what those two things do is they blind you from what's in front of you, and they kill what God has for you. No different. Jews were blinded to the Savior and the promise God sent, and they killed him on a cross. And if you continue to live in bitterness and pride and insecurity, and you're constantly going to make excuses, and you're not going to change and trust the God. See, we love Jesus, but we don't like doing what he said. And pride and bitterness will rob you and blind you. It will blind you of the blessing right in front of you, and it will kill the promise God has for you, just like it did them. There is no difference. Jesus said the enemy comes the thief. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. It's a robber. That's what pride and bitterness is. And nobody else has done that to you. You choose to stay in it. It was right in front of them. Jesus said himself. Boy, I know we got congestion all in the place today, but I'm glad y'all were here. I love y'all. I got it too. You hear my voice? This ain't preaching voice. This is congestion, winter, I hate you, stop raining voice. Matthew 21 says, then Jesus asked them, did you ever read this scripture? Read this in the scriptures. Jesus is pulling from the Old Testament, a prophecy. He says, the stone that the builders rejected, the original people that he made the promise to, they rejected it, has now become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing, and it is wonderful to see, but for only those who choose to see it. Pride and bitterness and not willing to change your cycles, it will kill everything that God has for you, and you can't blame your circumstances, blame your cycles that you choose to stay in. But here's the gospel. You ready? You ready for it? God's promises and plans are still in play. God never left Israel. He was always working when their women were getting raped and their bloodline mutilated and they're broken in the worst seasons of your life. The gospel is true for that nation and your family. God's promises are still in play because God, the God of the Bible, is a God who is all about forward. Forward always. It's always been that way. And Moses, the great leader, the greatest leader in the Old Testament, he led Israel out of slavery, right? He led them to the cusp of the promised land. I'm telling you, every story is our story. He led them to the cusp of the promised land that God promised for him too. And then he dies. He's not able to take it. The greatest leader, they're in the desert. He led them out of Egypt and he's dead. And you know what God says? God says, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. Forward. We're going forward. The people, Jesus' own people, didn't recognize the promise and see him, but he continued to move forward. They were blinded, but you don't have to be. They didn't see it, but you don't have to be. Timothy Keller made this comment in his book, and it is so true. He said, you only have two options with Jesus. There's only two. There is no in-betweens. He says, Dr. Timothy Keller says, you either kill him or crown him. I'm not saying that from fear. I'm not a fear-driven preacher. I will never scare you to do anything. I will never smother you or force you to do anything. But the offers and the promises and the statements that Jesus said, who he said he was, you don't get to go in between. Nobody did in the New Testament. They either killed, the ones that crowned him, followed him. The ones that killed him, put him on the cross. They left or changed. I preach more unapologetically and at a place of peace now more than ever because I realize that some people ain't going to want it. And when they don't want it, they don't want me because they know they're just not ready and they're not ready to grow. But I'm going to tell you, you either kill Jesus or you crown him. He will not be your casual friend. That's not that's not what he said. He will not be your latest impulse and hobby because you're trying to find what you're looking for. He either is everything or nothing. He said in Revelation, he said, man, I'd rather you be hot or cold than lukewarm because straddling the fence just keeps you in your cycles, except you actually begin to blame God because you're dishonest with yourself if you say you love him, but you really don't believe him. God's promises, Catalyst, are still in play. They are still in play in your life. I love you. says the Lord. I've always loved you, Catalyst Church, says the Lord. I know that you're broken. I know that you're hurting. I know that you're stressed out. I know that you've made some bad decisions and you're stuck in some bad situations right now and you don't know what to do and you're feeling so down and you don't think life can be the same again. Maybe you're older. Maybe you're young and you're like, I got my whole life ahead of me and I don't even know where to begin. Listen to me. I have loved you, says the Lord. I love you.